As you know, there's a lot of money to be made sending in products just like this to Amazon FBA. But honestly, that's the easy part. The challenge comes is when those products that you send to Amazon don't sell. In today's video, I'm gonna be sharing with you 4 strategies to implement on your old, dead, slow-selling Amazon inventory. I feel like a lot of sellers lose sight of this. But when you're selling on Amazon, the goal is to invest your hard-earned money into a product that then sells. Because when it sells, it brings back your money plus the profit. You slowly invest that profit and you buy more and more products, and that's how you make more money in an Amazon business. Well, a mistake that a lot of Amazon sellers make, especially new sellers, is they're buying, they're shipping, and then maybe 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months goes by, and they have an inventory full of 2,000 products, maybe 2,000 books, and they notice that their sales are somewhat stagnated, their profits aren't increasing, and they're just building a huge inventory and their business isn't growing. This is why I feel like it's really important, if you're a new Amazon seller, to start slow. There's no need to jump out of the gates, buying 1 million products, shipping them all into Amazon, thinking that you're gonna be able to fast track your results. Typically what happens is you make a lot of mistakes and you stack bad mistake on bad mistake on bad mistake. And again, 3 to 6 months down the road, yeah, you make some sales, yeah, you grow your business to an extent, but now you're stuck with a couple thousand products in your inventory that just aren't selling. Back in 2015, 2016, 2017, you could do this. Why? The fees were much less, but the game has changed now in 2024. And if you find yourself with a couple thousand products at Amazon FBA, and you just can't sell them for one reason or another, and I'm actually gonna share how you can fix those, but if you can't fix them, it's really, really expensive to be able to remove them, dispose them, ship them back to your house, and I'm gonna cover all of that, but that's the main issue. Before we get into this video, take it slow. Really learn how to read a Keepa chart. Really learn about the differences in sales rank. Really learn about what your minimum profit should be, because if the market turns or prices tank, you could be in a world of hurt. All right, now before I go down a crazy rabbit hole, I'm gonna stay on track right here. Let's get into the 4 strategies to be able to deal with your slow selling inventory that just doesn't seem to be moving anymore. Now you've got to keep in mind, if your products aren't selling, there's a couple reasons why they're not selling. Either A, it's not selling because you've got it priced incorrectly, or B, the product isn't selling because it's not very popular. There's not much of a market. What I mean is, you've got the item listed, maybe it's priced correctly. You might even be winning the buy box, but it's not selling. Why? Because maybe it's only selling 1 to 2 times a year and you're just playing the waiting game. Now, if you have competitors on your listings as well, maybe you have 4, 5, 6 sellers on the listing and maybe they have more feedback than you, the buy box is gonna be rotating. So now while it might sell 1 to 2 times per year, you might not ever get that sale because again, you're competing with other sellers and it just doesn't have much of a market. That's why it's super important before you buy a product, you wanna research how many times it's selling per month. You wanna take a look at the history over the last 3 months, 6 months, 12 months to really get an idea of how popular the product is. Now you can do this with Scout IQ and Scoutly by looking at the e-score and looking at the monthly sales. You can also look on Keepa to get an idea of how many times it's selling. And if you look on a Keepa chart, you'll see the green drops going up and down. Those are sales. There's a lot of different methods that you can get an idea of the market and how popular an item is and how many times it's sold in the past. Because let's be real, the past does define the future for the most part when it comes to selling products. If a product has sold well in the past, it's probably going to sell well in the future. Again, that's a general rule. I'm sure there's exceptions to the rules, especially with like textbooks where, you know, maybe a new edition comes out and the market does change. But for the most part, you want to be looking at the past performance to define how it's going to do in the future. Now, let's just assume you've purchased products that do have a good market. Let's assume you're buying products that are selling consistently. Then why isn't it selling? Typically, it has to come down to price. And if you're not priced correctly or you're not repricing your inventory on a regular basis, or if you don't have a repricer, you're going to be at a disadvantage. Now on Amazon, about 80% of the sales are known to go through the buy box, and the buy box does rotate, but typically the buy box is going to favor the lowest offer. Not always, but it favors it. It also favors FBA sellers over merchant sellers. And it does favor sellers who have been selling for a longer period of time. And if you're a brand new seller, you might not be winning the buy box, which is even more of a reason for you to be priced within, the lowest price or the first or second in line. Now, I had a coaching call with a gentleman who was in the same exact situation. He's been selling for a couple years and his sales have slowed down quite a bit. His sell-through rate was only around 12 to 15% per month, which is pretty low, especially for a bookseller. I'd like to see that, between 20, 25, maybe 30%, especially in today's day of age with all the additional fees. But one of the problems that he was dealing with is he couldn't figure out how to use his repricer correctly. He wasn't repricing his inventory, so all of his inventory was just kind of sitting there not being repriced, and his inventory was really moving slow. So what I told him was, and he didn't like this, but I said, dude, you've got to go through every single one of your products that are for sale on Amazon, and you have to either A, figure out, is this worth selling? Because over time, a lot of products aren't worth selling anymore. They might tank so much in price. You might have an item that was selling for 20 bucks, but now it's only selling for $5 or $6, and you're actually going to lose money or just make a couple of pennies. You have to determine, A, is it worth selling that product anymore? Okay, because if it's not worth selling anymore, then we're going to call that a bad investment, and we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. Or B, you have to go in and reprice your inventory. Now, there's a couple ways to reprice inventory. Number one, you can reprice it manually by going into Amazon Seller Central and just changing the list price. The good thing about this is it's free. Anybody could go in and reprice their inventory for free on Amazon. The downside is it is very time consuming, and there's something called an Amazon repricer or repricers in general, and you're gonna have your competitors who have repricers where when you change the price, they might have a rule set up, or they might have some type of AI repricer like BeCool that's just gonna undercut you a penny. And then, again, you're at a disadvantage of winning the buy box. Again, typically the buy box is gonna go to the lowest price, but not always, because the buy box, the buy box changes based on location, demographics, and a bunch of different factors. So if you have a repricer that's already set up, then what you're going to want to do is go in and adjust your minimum prices or your maximum prices. Or what you're going to want to do is change the rules within your repricer, okay? So I use BeCool Repricer. If you want to check that out, I'll put a link down below, rakeandprofit.com/BeCool. You get a 30-day trial. But with BeCool, I use the AI repricer. So I'll set up a minimum price, I'll set up a maximum price, and you can adjust those. So if those items aren't selling, you can actually lower your minimum price, because it's like a guardrail. If I set up a minimum price at 10 and then a max at 20, it's only going to price in between 10 and 20. And then there's something called rules. So on BeCool, there's different rules that I could set up that make it more aggressive or less aggressive. So if I set up a repricing rule that's more aggressive, then it's going to reprice closer to the minimum price. And if it's less aggressive, and it wants to make more profit, less aggressive, more profit, it's gonna price higher towards the maximum price. So you could change your rules. You could also set up conditional rules as well within your repricer that, essentially will go beyond or outside of your minimum price based on certain conditions. So you can set up repricing rules or a conditional rule that essentially says, hey, only price between the min and max, but after 30 days, if it doesn't sell, you can drop it 5% below the minimum price, so on and so forth. So that's another thing that you can do. But overall, if you determine that inventory that is slow selling still has potential to make you money, you've got to reprice your inventory. I can't say it enough. Reprice, reprice, reprice. If you don't want to pay for a repricer, you should be going in manually repricing at least 1 to 2 times per week. Yes, I know it's a pain in the butt, but that's a reason why a lot of people will invest in a repricer to be able to save time and automate that process. Again, it does come at an expense, but you've got to weigh out your time versus the investment and what it could make you. And I firmly believe that investing in a repricer could make you a lot more money, and for me, free up a ton more time. So to recap, let's say you have 2,000 items in your inventory. Step number 1, you have to go through every single item and you have to choose and make a decision. Is this item still worth selling, or is this something that is tanked in price and now it's a dud and it's just not worth money anymore? If it's an item that still is gonna make you, I would say $2, $3, $4, $5, then again, go in, change the list price if you don't have a repricer, or lower your minimum price if you do have a repricer, or change your rule to be more aggressive if you have a repricer, or consider setting up a conditional repricing rule that will go outside of your minimum price to be able to make sure you get a sale. Now, let's say you go through those 2,000 items and you determine that 500 of those items are dead. I'm sorry, my condolences go out to you. It's happened to me before. If you have inventory that's dead, that the rank is so high now, maybe it's a DVD that's up to 350,000, or it's a book that's up at 6 or 7 million, and you're like, what the heck happened to this thing? Or it's a product that just tanked in price so much, and maybe it's only selling for $9 now, and you're not gonna make any money, and you see there's like 30 sellers in line, you're like, this is not worth it anymore. Now we're gonna talk about 3 things that you can do with your inventory that you've now considered dead. So one of the downsides of selling on Amazon FBA is if you sell an item or send an item to Amazon FBA and you decide that it's died, it's done, I don't want it in my inventory anymore, it costs quite a bit of money now to be able to get it out of your inventory. Back in 2014, 15, 16, 17, it was extremely inexpensive and really easy. The game has changed. So let's go through what you can do, okay? So what you can actually do is go into manage all your inventory, and you can hit edit, and you could choose one of 3 things. You could either choose A, liquidation, B, disposal, or C, you could have the item shipped back to your house. Let's start with liquidation. So essentially Amazon has a liquidation program where they allow you to liquidate certain items to them. I don't know what they do, if they resell it or they recycle it. I'm not sure what they do, but this is the best option if it's available because it won't cost you a penny. You could actually make a couple pennies. You're not gonna get rich, but you can actually choose to have certain products liquidated to Amazon. Now you might be thinking, why am I gonna liquidate my products to Amazon? I'd rather have it disposed for a small fee or have it shipped back to me for a small fee. Well, like I said, the game has changed, and no longer is it a small fee anymore to have your items disposed or removed or trashed or shipped back to you. So I'll put some screenshots on the video of what it looks like to see the 3 options. But again, the liquidation option is going to be the best, but they're not gonna allow you to liquidate every product to them. Some products they don't want. So if you can't liquidate it, then we have to talk about the next 2 options, and these actually start to get pretty costly. So the next option is disposal. So if you have inventory that you've considered dead, you tried to liquidate it, they won't accept it, then your next option is disposing it. Essentially, that means that you're gonna tell Amazon to take this out of my inventory, take this product, and throw it in the trash. Now, do they actually throw it in the trash? Who knows? I'd like to think they do, but I don't know what they do. But that fee, I'm gonna put a screenshot on the screen, could cost anywhere from $1.50 up to $3 or $4 based on the dimension and based on the weight. I think it's weight based. Again, check out the screenshot on the video. But that's very expensive to dispose of it. I remember when it used to be 30 cents and then it was 50 cents. Now it's up like 300, 400, 500%. And this is why, if you're gonna sell on Amazon FBA, you wanna be damn sure that this product is going to sell. Because if it's not going to sell and it's not a very popular item that won't get approved into the liquidation program if you want to get rid of it for a couple of pennies, it's going to cost you multiple dollars. And again, it might not seem like a lot. You're probably thinking like, Steve, a couple bucks, who gives a damn? Well, what if you have 500? What if you have 1,000 items that you have to dispose of? That's 1,000 times $2. That's $2,000 to dispose of that inventory. Well, you might be thinking to yourself, well, I'm not gonna pay it. Well, you're gonna have to pay it if you wanna sell on Amazon. And if you don't pay it and you shut down your account, then you're never gonna be able to sell again. Now let's move on to the last option. If you've got dead inventory, you can't liquidate it, you don't wanna dispose of it, maybe for some reason you want it shipped back to your house, that's gonna cost you even more money than disposing it. I don't know the exact number. I think it's like $3, $4, $5. Maybe someone can help me out in the comments below. I never do this anymore unless it's an item that's selling for more than $30 to $40. I'll have it shipped back to me. Some situations where I have to ship an item back to me is maybe the item becomes gated or restricted, or it's like missing a SKU and I can't get it fixed, and we just like, for some reason, it's like stuck in stranded inventory. This is a little bit different. This is more like stranded inventory, but I typically don't ship an item back to me if it's like dead inventory. I'll usually just dispose of it, because what am I gonna do? I mean, I guess I could sell it on eBay or at a different location, but that's just not where I am in my business. So if you are and you want it shipped back to you, it's gonna cost you $3, $4, $5. I don't know the exact number, but it is not cheap at all. So to circle back to fixing your slow selling inventory, the solution to fixing your slow selling inventory is repricing your inventory. Again, price is everything on Amazon. And if you're not priced correctly, you're going to lose and miss out on a ton of sales and a ton of money that could be landing in your bank account. I'd recommend using Reprice It, but there are other repricers out there on the market. Feel free to do your research. But if you're not going to invest in a repricer, you've got to take the time to consistently reprice on a regular basis. And hopefully this video inspires you to make sure when you're out sourcing products to sell on Amazon that you're really taking the time to study the product, making sure that it has a good enough profit margin, making sure you're gonna make enough profit in ROI, making sure that there's a market, and keeping in the back of your head how long this might take to sell and what you're gonna do if the price tanks. Taking a look at the number of sellers, because if there's a lot of new sellers coming on the listing, that could put pressure on the price coming down. So you've got to keep all of this in mind when you're selling on Amazon. Hey guys, if you want more assistance and more help selling on Amazon, check out my free 5-day book selling workshop. It's literally 5+ hours of content that will help you to get started selling on Amazon, tips for how to list, how to ship, how to source. And I tell you, what you learn in that book selling workshop, you can apply to DVDs, you can apply to electronics, you can apply to Lego, you can apply it to office supplies, toys. So definitely check that out. I'll put a link down below. Also, any of the tools or supplies that I use in my Amazon business, it'll be linked up down below. But with that being said, much love, appreciate you guys, and see you in the next video. Bye.